Yo, we got a lot to talk about today. Gen Z is finally in the writer's room, or at least they're starting to catch on. Hey guys, what's up? It's imuRgency and welcome back to my channel. Today we are back with another video. And today we're gonna be talking about the new show, or relatively new show. Or actually, wait, hold on. I heard this show is actually a reboot of like an older show, but I'd never really heard of it, so I'm considering it a new show in my mind. Heartbreak High. And honestly, I feel like the show is severely underrated. Like, it wasn't even on like the Netflix top 10, or at least it's not right now as I'm recording it. And it truly needs to be, because when I tell you that this is the best Gen Z representation I have seen in a TV drama, or like any form of like entertainment outside of TikTok, I mean it. And y'all know I've seen a lot of media. We've watched a lot of shows on this channel, and this is the first one that has gotten it right. And we need to talk about why. But before we do that, if you're new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we do all things pop culture, TV, fashion. Yeah, it's a really good time, so make sure you're subscribed so that you can stick along for more. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to leave a like on this video because it helps out so much. I'll give you a second to do that right now. Thanks. And finally, while you're at it, follow me on my social medias here at imuRgency. That's TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. We got like 130 something K here on YouTube and like 250K on TikTok. Tell me why there's only like 7,000 y'all on my Instagram. So run that up. But enough self-promo, let's talk about Heartbreak High. So for those of y'all that have not seen the show yet, and based on like the poll that I put out on my community tab, it seems like that's most of y'all. We're gonna break this video up into two parts. One is gonna be completely spoiler-free, and it's just gonna be a little synopsis to give y'all a little taste, a little flavor of what's going on here at Heartbreak High. And then for those of you that have seen it, or really just like don't care about like spoilers, there will be a more spoilery synopsis, character analysis that we normally do on this channel. I'll try not to go too crazy on the spoilers, so if you do want to watch the full video, which I do recommend you do, then you can do that. But let me get you up. What is Heartbreak High? The best way I can describe this show is if Sex Education met Euphoria and had a baby, and that baby grew up and had a baby with Grand Army, and then they all moved to Australia. So the show's whole plot revolves around these two girls who used to be best friends but had a falling out, Amory and Harper. And their whole shtick before they had their friendship breakup is that they'd have this wall in school. It was this giant sex map that they'd have. They created this giant sex map of the school, basically linking everyone's different intimate encounters with each other and creating this giant web of intimacy, which eventually gets found out, and Amory gets in trouble because she takes all the blame, and then finds out that Harper then mysteriously hates her for some reason, which eventually leads to Amory, Harper, and then a bunch of other people that are also on the map getting placed into this one sex education class called Sluts. Well, officially SLTS, but you know, it's high school, so they call it Sluts. From there, drama ensues as Amory tries to figure out why Harper hates her all of a sudden. And I don't know if that synopsis really does the show justice, because it is just really good. And a large portion of why it's so good is because it really does capture Gen Z culture perfectly. Or like near perfectly. Like the mannerisms, the humor, the general sentiments towards life in the world. They get it. They get it. Like, it doesn't feel like cringy or forced like a lot of other shows try and do. It just feels like authentic. Like, the best way I can describe it is that the whole show felt like I was watching like a friend tell me a story about like their crazy time in high school. And that's not even mentioning the representation, because this is an Australian show, but this show is just overflowing with representation across the board. Like, just the cliff notes, this show is already super diverse racially, and a good portion of the main cast are people of color. Two main female leads, with one of them being a brown girl, where the focus is not on her identity or any other traditional storylines around being brown. And we have ace or asexual male representation in this show, which I don't know if you know is super rare in media. And the real beauty of all this is that it doesn't feel like they just threw these things in there just to have like diversity points. They just really expand and develop on each character to make each of them feel real. And that's just how I describe the whole show. It just feels real. It's so real. And with that, we're about to cross into the spoilery territory, as we're going to talk about some of these characters. So if you haven't seen the show yet and want to go in completely blind, I recommend you pause this video and get to watching and come back. But if you have seen it already and or you just don't care, Let's talk about some of these characters. First character we're talking about has to be Amory. Amory was such a likable main character, and I feel like when it comes to teen dramas, it's often really hard to like the main character for a majority of like the show. Because I feel like for some reason when it comes to these kind of shows, the main character is always super hard-headed and just super unlikable for like 90%, and either has their moment of redemption at the very end or very beginning. But Amory, I didn't really have many problems with. Of course she was flawed, as any good character should be. Her character was incredibly funny, and her actor did such a great job portraying just like a teenage Gen Z girl just going about her life. Like, there were so many moments where I just forgot like it was acting, like the way there's like a scene where she's yelling at this white boy. What did she say?
Listen, you mayonnaise. What is your problem with me?
Please. Like, she was so real for that. She's honestly so real for that. I love Amory. And Amory, we need to talk about this. Amory was on her Belly behavior. You know Belly from The Summer I Turned Pretty? Because she enchanted every single man that she wanted. She saw it, she wanted it, she got it. But good on her, honestly. Like, she was going through it this season. Like, the girls hated her for most of this season, but she still did what she needed to do, and I respect her for that. Gotta love Amory. We'll talk a little bit more about her character in relation to Harper more towards the end, but I'll just say right now before we move on to the next character that I did not fully understand their beef. Like, even after it was fully explained to me, I still did not understand. Like, it didn't fully make sense to me. But I'll leave that up there. We'll circle back to that later. The next character we're talking about, the icon of the show. Like, the icon of the show, Darren. Darren is giving us Black, queer, non-binary representation, and they are delivering. When I say that they're an icon, they're an icon. Like, I honestly feel like Darren's character brought so much to the show just in terms of depth, humor. Like, they were the funniest bitch on the show, I'm sorry. Like, from calling Amory a flop, talking about her bangs, to the fake performance that they gave to the principal, shedding genuine fake tears. Like, Darren did that. I'm sorry. Like, but on the flip side, you really do get a full sense of their character because you get to see them in many different roles. You see Darren the child, Darren the friend, Darren the potential partner, and specifically you see how damaged they are from each of these different relationships and how they repeatedly feel like they are not capable of being loved. Like, on the familial side, they literally get sent out of their mom's house because their mom's white boyfriend can't really handle all that Darren's giving, and Darren's biological dad doesn't necessarily make that any better. Like, he's trying, but still not really great. He even admits in the final episode that he used to be racist, homophobic, and sexist. Like, on TikTok, the girls were saying that he was actually on the original Heartbreak High, Darren's dad. But still, why admit to that on camera? Why are you gonna admit that to your Black, queer, non-binary child? You know? And like, saying that Darren's existence really cured all of that, like, girl, let's be real. Let's be so for real right now. Like, what? That just took me out of the scene. Like, that just took me out the scene because why you I just don't know. But anyways, back to Darren. It was just really nice to get a full sense of their character and who they are as a person. And might I say, Darren is such a good friend. Like, such a good friend. The way that they're always there for Quinny, who is Darren's best friend, we're gonna talk about in a little bit, is just so precious. Like, I love their friendship so much. And Darren's fashion sense eats every single time. There are just so many different outfits on the show, and it goes back to just being Gen Z and relatable. Like, these, like, their clothing, like, I feel like in 10-20 years this is gonna be a good benchmark, like a good like time capsule of like what the fashion is right now, because like it wasn't any of that like Disney or Nickelodeon teen clothing or even like other traditional just like basic teen clothing that you get in teen dramas. Like, they were dressing like how we're dressing. Like, it was just accurate. Like, the clothes, like whoever did wardrobe for this show, come on. Y'all were doing something, because like it really just felt like you went outside and just saw some people on the street. Like, I can't. Let's talk about the boy that Darren was crushing over, Cash. And Cash, I don't know if you felt this, but it felt like Cash was giving me the same kind of energy that Adam from Sex Ed was giving me. You know? Like, I feel like they're like this, but like this, if that makes sense. Just in the sense that they're both like good guys put in bad situations, which make them make not necessarily great choices for themselves. Now, Cash, if you haven't seen the show, Cash is like they call it an esche. I mean, no disrespect, but I did not really get what an esche was. I don't understand Australian slang. Let's look up what an esche is. Okay, it's apparently, according to Urban Dictionary, an esche is usually a white skinny male who likes to think that they are roadmen or gangsters. Cool. So yeah, Cash is one of those, but he's an esche with a heart because he falls in love with Darren and their relationship is just so cute and tumultuous because it gets revealed that Cash is actually asexual, which, like I said before, is huge because you rarely see asexual men in shows or just in media in general, so this representation is like so important and just really refreshing to see because you get to see Darren, who is kind of hypersexual, try and make things work with Cash, who is asexual, and the dynamics just start dynamicking. And I really do respect Cash for his actions at the end of the season. He was involved in some shady stuff, but I am glad that he did what he did at the very end because it was very honorable. I'm not going to spoil too much, but just know the ending between Darren and Cash, heartbreaking. I just really love Quinny's character because she was just so funny and just so bubbly and nice. It's really hard to hate Quinny. Like, if you do, I think the problem might lie with you because she was just a wholesome character. And one thing that I think that they really did well about their character is how her character represented people who are on the spectrum. Based on my TikTok comments from people who are also on the spectrum, as well as different reviews that I've read on the show, people are pretty happy with how autism was represented on the show and in Quinny's character. And a lot of that is due to the fact that the actor herself is actually also on the spectrum, which honestly is amazing because I feel like oftentimes when it comes to these sort of roles, they're not given to people who are actually on the spectrum. And personally, I think it's important that they actually are because it gives the opportunity to people who are actually dealing with autism to tell their own story, or at least represent their own story in a way that's accurate to their own experience or experiences to people that they know. Which one thing that I did not love though, which might be controversial, is her relationship. Quinny has a girlfriend in this show named Sasha, and I didn't really love their dynamic. Even from the beginning when things were still healthy, I wasn't a super fan of their dynamic together. Sasha just always gave me weird vibes. Maybe that just came from the way that she was so quick to switch up on Amory without getting the full facts. But I don't know. Sasha was just always a little off to me. And then when Quinny and Sasha started getting into their little fight and Sasha was being insensitive and sort of assuming the role of like caretaker of Quinny as opposed to just being like partner of Quinny, the vibes were just off for me. And even at the end where they had their whole apology scene, I feel like there could have been more done. Like I'm not a fan of them together. I'll just say it. But Quinny herself though, love her down. Now let's talk about some of the boys. Malachi. I loved Malachi. Malachi made me mad. Malachi got every emotion out of me. Like Malachi made me mad. He made me furious at some points. But I also loved him and was happy and sad for him because Malachi was just a complicated character. He was a complicated character. I'm like, me when I'm crushing on somebody, oh my God, he's just so complicated. He was going through things. No, I loved Malachi. He was just a complex character. He was there for Amory from the beginning because he was the new kid, and they end up coupling up, which was super cute, and I really loved Amory and Malachi's dynamic together. But he had to figure himself out. He was struggling in a fight against like the whole male energy that was going on at the school. Or like, you know how the guys are when it comes to gossiping about their sex lives and telling everyone's business to everybody. And Amy really checked him on that and he started to change. But then he got himself into some traumatic stuff because we get a police brutality episode. Right. Because we needed that. And in this police brutality episode, Malachi gets body slammed on the floor by a cop and it gets recorded. And Amory, this is the one thing I was mad at Amory for. Amory is trying to do the right thing and get the message out there and like spread the video out online so that people can know what's happening, which I understand. But also Malachi asks repeatedly not to have that happen because he knows that nothing's gonna change and that he is the one that's gonna be harmed by that, not the cop. But then Amory somehow manages to post it anyway and then fails to delete it right away to the point where it gets like screen capped and like reposted, which honestly I don't know how that happens. Like, is Amory popping on social media? Like, what's going on there where it's up for a couple seconds and all of a sudden it's all over the internet? Like, girl, are you an influencer? Like, what's going on? Like, what's really tea? But then that video gets circulated around of him getting body slammed, and then somehow Malachi becomes shamed publicly for being the victim. Like, it's just something about the way that they're replaying this man getting body slammed and literally gasping for air, and they make a meme out of that. I mean, relatable. Like we've established, the show is real. But still, like, damn. And rightfully so, that traumatizes Malachi. But it doesn't stop there because Miss Harper has something up her sleeve. Well, I can't put it on just Miss Harper. Miss Harper and Mr. Dusty have something up their sleeve. Because why directly after this man was traumatized and on the verge of a breakdown, do they swoop him up and then have a threesome with him? Riddle me that. What in the Gossip Girl? What in the Elite? Like, please. Oh my God. So after all that, Malachi rightfully needs to find himself. And honestly, at the end of the season, I really do feel like he needs to still sort some stuff out. You know that scene or like that arc where he just like goes off into the woods after he almost throws himself off of a building, and he just gets taken off into the woods and then is outdoorsy for a good couple episodes and then just comes back and is like, I'm healed. What happened? We need some more explanation. Like, if there's a season 2, we need more information on what happened there, because you can't just go off into the woods and have all your problems fixed in like 2 days. Like, be for real. Like, what happened in those woods with that man to where you just came back and you're good after? Like, what did y'all talk about? What really happened? Like, I need to know. But really with Malachi, like I said, I loved him, and I really do hope that him and Amory get back together because they're just so cute together. I really just think they're so cute together. But yeah, now we've got them established, let's talk about Miss Girl herself. Miss Mystery, yeah. Now this show does a really great job of making you hate Harper for every single episode up until the very end. And honestly, I'd say that they even take it a little bit too far, because even after you find out what happened, there's still a piece of you that's like, yeah, but you still did all of this. Like, it gets to the point where like the things that happen don't necessarily excuse her actions for the entire season, but they definitely do explain a lot of them, because she's been through some terrible, terrible stuff. And like, definite spoilers here for people that haven't watched it yet. Like, she almost gets abducted by the Eshays, and then afterwards, when she comes home, after being shut out by Amory, then goes home and almost gets murdered by her dad. So yeah, a very traumatizing 24 hours. And then afterwards goes and completely cuts off Amory and begins to wreak havoc for the rest of the season. And this is where we need to talk about Amory and Harper's relationship, because I feel like I said before, I really just don't understand the full depth of this beef, because I'm just confused. Because Harper says at some point in the show that like, oh, Amory, you know what you've done. And yes, I'd say that she's right, because Amory in theory should know what could possibly have happened where Harper would be mad at Amory, because based on the memories that we've seen, Amory would know, for one, that Harper could be mad because Amory disappeared when she came back, like Harper was nowhere to be found. Okay, that could be one thing. And two, Harper could be mad because Amory didn't let Harper spend the night at her place and instead was hooking up with someone. Of course, Harper didn't know that she was hooking up with someone, but still, like, Amory knew that she was hooking up with someone, so she could have put the pieces together if that was their last interaction, you know? But then in Amory's defense, there was no way that she could have known what happened to Harper, because Harper would not explain anything to Amory. So really their beefs were just confusing. Like, you can't really blame either side because neither of them really communicated at all. But then Harper's whole explanation would be like, oh, I wasn't trying to punish you for what happened. Like, you completely isolated Amory socially. Let her take the blame for something that you both did with the sex wall. And then stole both of her crushes, both of her manses. Like, if that isn't punishment, what is? Oh, I'm sorry. Not only did you take both of her crushes, you slept with them both at the same time. Like, yeah, that was just sinister. Like, my favorite part in all that was that even after that came to light, like, Harper's other friends were chewing her up for that, because what were you thinking? What were you really thinking? Like, it was just that accountability piece of her friends also being like, wow, yeah, you really fucked up there. That just really was the icing on the cake, because they could have easily written them to just be like, oh yeah, Amory is just overreacting. Like, yeah, you did something bad, but it's not that bad, like enabling her behavior. But no, they were like, yeah, that was kind of fucked up. But I'm really glad that Harper got some sort of justice for what happened to her at the end of this season. I am really excited to see how things play out with season 2, because the show better get a season 2, like stream it so it gets a season 2. Like, Netflix, if you're watching, greenlight this one for another season. Like, this one needs another season. Like, I'm excited to see how the drama pans out, because Harper and Amory did trash the main Eshays car. So yeah, that'll be interesting. And finally, the last character I want to talk about is Dusty. And Dusty was Dusty this season. He just generally was not a good person at all throughout all 8 episodes of this. Was just not a great person. And that really is a shame, because he just is so pretty. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, the man's fine. And speaking of things that would happen in season 2, I really do hope that he gets a redemption arc. Like, he needs cause. He needs to suffer a little bit. Like, for what he's done, he needs to hit rock bottom. Maybe even the rock bottom of rock bottom. Like, he needs to be broken down a little bit to be built back up. But I do feel like redemption is not lost on him. He just needs to go through some shit to actually come back up, you know? And I hope that season 2 does that to him just a little bit so he becomes a better person. I really do hope that it gets to season 2. I don't feel like there's a ton of buzz for it yet. So if you haven't seen it already, I would highly recommend you do, just because I feel like this show just gets it. It is the first example of a show that gets it. Like, this show is what all of the other teen dramas are trying to do, but failing. Like, I made a ton of TikToks on the show, and all of the comments are saying that, like, they feel represented as a Gen Z for, like, the first time in this show. And that's just important because we just haven't gotten that. We haven't gotten that before, and it's just so nice to have it now. So I highly recommend, if you haven't seen this show, you should definitely recommend it. If it gets to season 2, there are a lot of things that they can really delve into. Like I said before, I hope they delve into the lead, Eshe, I forgot his names. I also feel like, I don't know, it might just be like the inner like sex education viewer in me, but I feel like a new bombshell needs to enter the villa. I feel like a new bombshell needs to enter the villa. Like, we need someone new to spice things up. They need to get cash out the clink. And they also need to graduate, because I love when schools that are set in high school actually get to graduate and leave. I'm looking at you, Elite. But yeah, those are all of my thoughts on Heartbreak High. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think about this show? If you haven't seen it yet, are you going to watch it? And if you fell into any of the identities that were represented in the show, do you feel like they were accurate or good representations of the roles, characters, traits that they were meant to represent? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Again, if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss anything. Leave a like on this post because it helps out so much, and follow me on my socials at imuRgency. But other than that, y'all, thank you so much for watching. I've been imuRgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.